So hi, everybody. I'm Adrienne Eaton, the current president of LERA and the president for another few days. I'm here to welcome you to our 73rd annual meeting, our second virtual meeting, and what we believe or hope will be our last virtual meeting, although some of you who came on early were hearing Emily Smith, our executive director, talk about some of the advantages for her in terms of organizing a virtual meeting. And I think we're looking at elements that we might keep, some of the positive elements of meeting virtually that we might keep going forward, but more to hear about that. So thanks for joining us today. It's great to see so many friends, colleagues, High Rutgers people, and a bunch of new names and faces as well, especially after the year that we've had. I think last year's conference was a tremendous success. We were really nervous about it, given where we were at that point, but we could see there was a real hunger for interaction. And I'm just really hoping we can keep up our energy this year for virtual meetings, because the program is really excellent, as again, some of us were chatting about before we got started officially. So I want to thank Wilma Liebman. Wilma, I can see you on my screen. Maybe you can wave to folks. She's our incoming president and our program chair. So I want to really thank Wilma for putting the program together, but also the program committee and especially her co-chairs, Erin Sojourner, Lynn Reinhardt, and Bob Cervelli. And of course, always our staff, Emily Smith and Bernadette Tiemann. Emily and Bernadette, wave to people. Yes, claps for everybody, virtual or otherwise. Let me find my virtual clapping. There we go. Anyway, really terrific program. And one of the most exciting sessions on the program is this one, featuring, as it does, the new Secretary of Labor, Martin J. Walsh. I don't quite feel comfortable calling him Marty since I don't know him, but the session is pre-recorded, and Wilma will be conducting an interview with Secretary Walsh. And I am really looking forward to it, as I'm sure all of you are as well. Just a quick word on Wilma. As most of you know, I think Wilma is an extremely accomplished labor lawyer who, among other things, served as a member of the NLRB and then was chair of the board under President Obama. I've known Wilma for many years now and have learned an enormous amount from her about the law and about employment relations more broadly, and always enjoy talking with her and learning from her. I'm going to take a little more time to properly introduce the secretary, formally to do that. Secretary Walsh was elected in 1997 as a state representative for one of the most diverse districts in Massachusetts. There, he focused on creating good jobs, protecting worker rights, expanding mental health treatment, and investing in public transit. While working full-time as a legislator, he returned to school to earn a degree in political science at Boston College, something I was very impressed to hear, something I did not know. Following his time as a state representative, Secretary Walsh spent the last 7 years as mayor of the city of Boston, the great city of Boston. While mayor, he led the creation of close to 140,000 jobs, helped secure a statewide $15 an hour minimum wage, paid sick leave, and paid parental leave. He established universal high-quality pre-K for all children and free community college for low-income students, things that are now on the Biden administration agenda. Secretary Walsh was a national leader in the response to COVID-19, getting PPE to first responders and nursing homes, funding emergency childcare for healthcare and frontline workers, halting evictions and providing rental relief, and setting up multiple funds to help small businesses survive. As mayor of Boston, Secretary Walsh also made his mark as a labor leader. After following his father into labor's Local 223 in Boston, he rose to head the Building and Construction Trades Council from 2011 to 2013. He worked with business and community leaders to promote high quality development and created a program called Building Pathways that has become a model for increasing diversity in the workplace and providing good career opportunities for women and people of color. Secretary Walsh was sworn in as the 29th Secretary of Labor on March 23rd of this year, and we are also pleased that we are able to share this conversation between Wilma and Secretary Walsh today. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Mr. Secretary. Thank you for graciously agreeing to kick off this 73rd annual meeting of the Labor and Employment Relations Association. And congratulations on your new appointment. And welcome to the nation's capital with all the rewards and trials that federal service brings. I am confident that you're going to make a huge difference in addressing the many challenges that working people are facing at this unique and uncertain moment in history. Thank you for your eagerness to serve at this moment. And I am delighted to have the privilege to have this conversation with you. So let's get started. Why don't you start by talking about the journey that brought you to President Biden's cabinet, and how have your experiences, both personal and professional, shaped the values and priorities that you bring to the Department of Labor?
Well, thank you very much for having me today, and it's such an honor to be here. And thank you for this important conversation. What shapes me? My parents came to this country as immigrants from Ireland. My father came out in 1956. My mother came out in 1959. They met here in Boston, quite honestly. And my father had an opportunity when he first came out here to join a union. He joined the laborers union, and my mother was a homemaker basically at the time. She worked in different odds and ends jobs in Boston, taking care of. She was a nanny for a while. She was 17 when she came to America at first, and then she worked, in different places. But the opportunity for a union when my parents met, allowed them the opportunity to save some money, buy a home, help, being part of that union, creating opportunities for other people to find jobs and getting jobs, allowing opportunities to have health care and benefits, and the pension for a dignified retirement. And that was kind of the family that I grew up in. And I followed my father into the building trades. And prior to that, when I was at the age of 7 years old, I was diagnosed with Burkitt's lymphoma. And the fact that in 1974 my father had health insurance, I was able to get treatment at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in the Jimmy Fund in the Children's Hospital. As my father got older, when he retired, he was able to have a pension, and able to have some comfort in his life. When my dad passed away, my mother was able to keep the pension going. So it really was and is an opportunity into the middle class. As you know, for the middle class life, obviously we need to make sure that we have investments going into families, and that's what we want. That's what we want to do as elected official. I worked with unions and employers to create good jobs and pathways into those good jobs. As a mayor of the city of Boston, our economy thrived, and we also are pro worker. And I think there's real opportunities here to. I don't agree with the business versus labor. I think that we need to be one unit moving forward for our economy. So we saw a lot of good things there.
Yeah, thank you for that observation. You also make a wonderful statement for why we need unions. Um, I think you're probably unique among the secretaries of labor coming from being a mayor of a big city. So I want to come back to that. But first, let's talk about your policy priorities at the Department of Labor, particularly as we move into hopefully a post COVID world.
Yeah.
And in the wake of last year's many intersecting crises and what those crises exposed about pre-existing labor market imbalance, structural inequalities, and weaknesses in our workplace laws and social safety net.
There's no doubt that we need to build back better. And my priorities and our priorities that do well are central to achieving that vision. As you mentioned, COVID exposed lots of inequities. None of it was new. We knew about it. We learned that it's not only morally wrong, but also creates deep vulnerabilities in our economy. Worker protections and worker welfare is a fundamental to the DOL mission. I'm grateful to be head of an agency that has so many dedicated, committed career staff here that really work every single day in all these different areas. And inequity in the labor market is a fundamental focus of mine. And when I started talking about the DOL, people everyone agreed. A lot of it's due to systemic racism, gender inequality. It's the exploitation of immigrants. It's income inequality. Something that we have to continue to work on at DOL. The workers with the lowest wages also tend to have the fewest benefits and protections, and that seems backwards. The focus of the president's economic plan is a good jobs plan with pathways into the middle class and worker protection. Those are the priorities that I'm going to have at DOL. And, I know the president is laser focused on we'll probably talk about a little bit, but the American Jobs Plan, the American Family Plan. We also, in the administration, relaunched our Apprentice Advisory Committee to get voices from industry, from labor, and experts to help shape how we grow these programs. And we're also strengthening enforcement of worker protection from workplace safety at OSHA to healthcare coverage and mental health parity at EBSA. I was on a Zoom earlier today talking about mental health and substance use parity and making sure it's not just having health insurance, but making sure that people can afford the health insurance. It's pay equity at the Women's Bureau and anti-discrimination efforts that we have in the department. So there's lots of different policy areas that we cover here, and obviously, as you know, but those are some of the areas that we're really thinking about as we move forward here, at least in the first part of 2021.
There are a lot of challenges, and it's an ambitious and agenda, but I have confidence. So you've sort of touched on this. I looked it up. I think the Department of Labor enforces about 180 different federal laws, and there are lots of different departments. And something that I know is of concern to people within the department itself, which is how all the pieces tie together. Certainly, the last year of COVID told us how important it was to integrate unemployment insurance and safety and health measures and wage and hour regulations for essential workers. But looking more generally, a coordinated approach by the department seems essential, whether we're thinking about the gig economy, the fissured workplace, the impacts of technology, or the changing expectations of workers. So have you thought at all about how all these pieces might tie together?
Yeah, collaboration is key. Collaboration across agency lines, breaking out of silos is a priority of mine. It's even whatever I've done in government or anything I've worked on. I'm a big believer in collaboration and not having the silos. I think that's key. It's been something in Boston. Our pandemic response took it to another level, and it kind of taught us on how to move forward. We had something was called the Crisis Response Forum. We had a daily call every day for 7 days a week for months with leaders from every single agency within city government, and it literally changed city government, changed the way we deliver solutions and deliver product, I guess, but changed how we fix solutions. Like we had 24 hours to come up with an answer. Um, this is an important step at DOL in responding to the president's executive order on racial equity and supporting marginalized communities. We have a working group of leaders across agencies to look at everything that we do through the equity lens and develop proposals. Many times, as you suggest, it's a space between different services and the most vulnerable people that fall through the cracks, and we have to continue to make sure that doesn't happen. We have an opportunity to strengthen our coordination. That's key, and stronger consistency. Like for example, stronger consistency in the state unemployment system is another big part of that. So it really is about collaboration and working collectively together. I think you've seen it. You've seen it in your time as well. When an organization isn't working collectively together, inevitably there's going to be problems. And I think at the Department of Labor, by trying to set that tone at the top is really important.
And it seems to me that your experience in Boston over the last year will be invaluable going forward.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the task force. So the Biden-Harris administration has established a cabinet-level task force on unions and worker empowerment. The vice president chairs it, you vice chair it. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you hope to accomplish?
Yeah, as you know, a lot of people know union density has been declining in the United States for decades, roughly from 30% in the 50s to about 10% today. Some of that decline is due to the change in the nature of work and the different industries that we have. But the truth is, the system has been tilted against workers and their efforts to organize. It's an economic and social problem. It also, in my opinion, is worse than the economic inequality that we see in this country. Real wages have stagnated, even as workers' productivity has increased and soared. Good health insurance and retirement plans are harder to find. Once thriving communities we've seen them struggle now, and Black and brown workers have found it even harder than before to enter the middle class and stay there. I mean, we can just look back on the numbers. It's weakening our democracy. When workers come together in unions, we can stand up in corporate abuse and fight the corporate abuse and counter Wall Street's power in the political system. Without unions, too often they're on their own, and it just doesn't have to be even unionized workers. Just creating a strong middle class is key. I mean, that's something that we need to do. So, what the president is asking every cabinet and federal agency to look at what they can do to empower workers, enable people right to organize if they choose to do that. He's also, and I am as well, a strong supporter of the PRO Act that would go a long way towards restoring workers' rights. And when I think about organized labor, and I do a little bit of history looking at it, you look at the strength of the middle class back in the 50s and 60s. And as you saw the decline in the middle class as we came to this kind of space where it's the people reference the top 1 or 2% of the country and everyone else, you've also seen a decline in the labor unions. And so we need to get back to building a middle class that works for everybody, I think, in a lot of ways. And that's what the president's focus has been. And from when he started as a candidate, that's really what we should be focused on in our country. We shouldn't be, trying to make somebody's life a little better. We really have to do better than that.
And what's the timetable if there is one for the
180 days?
180.
180 days. Yeah, we have to have a report back to the president. The task force, the chair of it is the vice president, Vice President Harris, and I'm the co-chair. So, as a matter of fact, there's a meeting right now as we speak on the task force with some of the staff and the team to think about how we're going to move forward.
Well, good. Good luck with it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you sort of alluded to this already. We both know all too well that, although I think you tried to duck this at the beginning, that views on labor issues are deeply held and usually divided. This is an oversimplification, but labor on one side, the other. So what are your views about why this is, and do you have thoughts about how we might find more consensus on key issues? And critical here, I wonder whether your experience in the building trades, and I spent a little time with the bricklayers, so I know the uniqueness of the building trades. Do you think your building trades background and your experience as mayor of Boston gives you a particular perspective on how to bridge these divides?
I actually believe it does. I have always been somebody who believes in common ground exists wherever you can find it. Whether as a member of the legislature in Massachusetts, we predominantly Democratic legislature, but some of my closest friends are Republicans, and we didn't agree on all the issues, but we were able to have differences and not make it personal. My time in the building trades, when I took over the building trades, I didn't have to meet with union contractors necessarily, and I didn't have to meet with developers that built union. What I did was I focused on meeting developers and contractors that were non-union to create a dialogue and an opportunity to build relations with them. My time as mayor, when I ran for mayor, all the papers said that I would not be a good mayor. I'd be bad for business and I'd ruin the city and all this other stuff. And quite honestly, the opposite happened. We're able to create 86 million square feet of new development in the city worth $48 billion. I was able to have a AAA bond rating, say 7 consecutive years. I was able to build a relationship with the business community and labor where we're able to collaborate together. And I do believe in collaboration. I know it can happen. There's no question that it can happen. We can find common ground. We also need to level the playing field for workers. It's, as I mentioned earlier, it's been tilted against them for quite some time, but it's important to make sure that we continue to move forward. So, when I think of Washington, or I think of Capitol Hill, or I think of Beacon Hill, the strategies that we're looking at here will have the support of businesses. It's bipartisan support. It's infrastructure investment. It's job training. That's just the job training. We're a business run by anybody, a Republican or a Democrat, conservative or independent, liberal, whatever it is. You need those infrastructure investments to grow your business. You need education for your employees. You need to make sure you have good job training, and you need to make sure that the people in your company have access to family care and childcare. Those aren't Democrat or Republican priorities. Or quite honestly, labor or management priorities. They're American people priorities. So I do feel that we can, we have the opportunity to do that, and I feel like, and I think that President Biden, if you listen to his words and hear what he said, even in his time as United States Senator, like he doesn't draw lines. When he's talking about how do we move our country forward for the American person. That's really what we need in this country. We need more talk of that. I think the divisiveness in this country has not helped us. And these plans that are being put forward, as you said, they're not Republican plans, they're not Democratic plans. They're for the American person, the worker, the person who lives in this country. It's for America. So I definitely think we can find common ground. And I know we've had a couple decades here of picking sides and staying in our corner, but I think it's time that we break down those silos and start working together on issues that of common interest for the American people.
Well, I wish you well with that. I think you're well poised to do it. The divides are corrosive. Do you have any specific thoughts about reaching out to the business community in the coming months?
Well, I have. I mean, I've reached out to I've already talked to some of the business folks in the country. Obviously, I have a great relationship with the business folks in the city of Boston as being the mayor for 7 years. But I've already begun those reach outs, and I've asked some of my acquaintances here in the city to let business leaders know who I am, what I'm all about, because I think people will label you as, oh, you're a union guy, you must be bad for business and must not want it. So we've done some of that, and also Secretary Gina Raimondo, Secretary of Commerce. We've spoken a lot about taking kind of on the road, our show on the road, commerce and labor, because without commerce you don't have labor, without labor you don't have commerce, and how do we work collectively together? And we've appeared at a couple of different events already, Gina, myself, and we're talking about supporting, because I mean I'm a business, I support business. I mean I support business in the city. I have a good story to tell, and I think that that's a good thing. And Gina supports labor, and we're going to work together on this. And I think as we get further down the road here, as people get more familiar with us and what we're doing, I think people will start to see, oh, they're right. They're right. This is a good thing.
Well, that's great. And I assume you know each other from New England.
Yes, the governor and the mayor.
Yeah, that's right. So we don't have a whole lot of time left, but let me just ask you this. There have been a lot of debates about the future of work, and especially robotics and AI and technology. How are you thinking about this changing technologies, and how do we ensure that workers will have some voice in shaping the future of work?
Yeah, the narrative has been that workers lose their jobs to technology, and that's really only a small part of the story. We can create many more good jobs than we've lost with the right policies and investments. And I think that takes me to the American Jobs Plan, investments in research, innovation, infrastructure, manufacturing, green energy. And I think that when the president launched this plan, we talked about an infrastructure plan, and everyone got so tied up on infrastructures, roads, and bridges. And infrastructure is so much more than that. It's research, it's innovation, it's infrastructure, it's manufacturing. When we think about manufacturing, we think about an assembly line. Manufacturing today can be different. It's green energy. They can replace some of the jobs of the the coal mines and places like that. So we can really do a lot of good things. These technologies are going to be the tools that in the hands of our workforce moving forward. So a big part of the focus here at the Department of Labor is expanding in-demand job training programs, prepare workers for the jobs of the future. And I think that, we can do it. And I think that that's something that I think we have to be real intentional. And then we have to also look through the lens of equity to make sure that these jobs are being given to people of color and women. I mean, we have to make sure that everyone benefits from the workforce. So I don't want to label this, we have an industrial revolution on our way, but there's an opportunity here really the president, when he launched these two jobs plan, the American Jobs Plan, the American Families Plan, it wasn't in response to the pandemic. It was about how do we remain competitive and continue to lead the world in these different areas of research, innovation, infrastructure, manufacturing, green energy, and other jobs. That's what President Biden wants to see, and that's quite honestly what I want to see. And the Department of Labor is going to have a big role in this area as well, particularly around the job training and the apprentice programs, but some of the other stuff as well.
Well, good. Again, these are very ambitious plans, but so very necessary. So this organization is unique in bringing together labor and business and academics and practitioners and neutrals and advocates. And so I know the audience is going to be really very interested in everything you've had to say. And I'd like to sit here and give you an invitation for next year's meeting, hopefully in person in Detroit. But at that time, what would you hope to report to us about your accomplishments of the first year?
Thank you. First of all, good luck in the conference, and I hope, I know it's been a difficult year for everybody. So thank you for continuing the important conversations you're having. You know, I hope I'm able to stand at a podium somewhere next year and talk about implementing the major pieces of the American Jobs Plan, the American Family Plan that has been passed by Congress and signed by the president into law. This will be transformative in terms of security of working people and substantially in our economy, and which I think is going to be really important. But in either way, we will have done in OSHA, in the Department of Labor, has hired hundreds of new OSHA inspectors, and they'll be out in the field. We will have funded more registered apprenticeship programs, along with new pre-apprentice programs with supports to help marginalized workers in the pathway. And this is all going on now, and I'll be able to talk about it more. We'll be able to make progress helping states modernize the unemployment systems. That's significantly focused on our budget request that we've asked through the American Rescue Plan, $2 billion. So we'll be working across the board. I hope American workers will feel a lot more support, more partnership, more optimism about the future than they have had in a long time. I think that that's going to be key. And I think that we need to do this together. Business, labor, community, all of us working collectively together to move our country forward. This has been a very challenging year and a half for a lot of people. For those folks that are watching, anyone who lost loved ones, I want you to know I'm thinking of you, and you're in my thoughts and prayers. This has been a tough year for a lot of people, and as President Biden says, we need to build back better, and we have an opportunity to build back better. By next June, I'm hoping that I'm sitting on the stage somewhere, and we're talking about how much advancement we've done in a very short period of time. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. Hopefully it's been insightful, been great to me. I appreciate it, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your insights, and we wish you all the very best going forward with a difficult time. But as I said at the beginning, I am fully confident that you're going to make a big difference. So thank you again.
Appreciate it.
Fantastic interview, Wilma. Thank you so much. So happy that you were able to get Secretary Walsh to talk with us, and thank you for that wonderful range of questions and depth of questions. And I very much hope that we can get Secretary Walsh back next year, as you suggested, Wilma, and that we'll have a chance to ask questions. All of us will have a chance to ask a question. So we are about at our time. To close out the session, I just want to remind you, we have another plenary scheduled later today. It's our National Policy Forum plenary with David Otor, Kimberly Lawrence, and Rebecca Dixon. That's at 2:15. We have, of course, more plenaries and many more concurrent sessions. The next sessions start at 11:45. And I look forward to seeing you virtually in sessions and chatting, my favorite thing to do in the virtual world. And Wilma, do you want a final word?
Just to say, I really enjoyed the opportunity to conduct this interview. I particularly thank Tom Koken and Lynn Reinhardt for helping make sure it happened. So enjoy the conference, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.